As you can see, I'm in a scooter. I'm disabled. And I think I'm a perfect candidate because I represent the disabled, the low income, the senior housing, and anybody that thinks they don't have any kind of voice in the city. I know that people have talked about districts, etc., and it just, a lot of people feel they're not represented. I know manufactured housing. I've heard this a lot over the years. They go to the council a lot. But anyway, I'm sorry. I do have a master's in public administration from Cal State University. I have a bachelor's in public administration and environmental affairs from Indiana University. So I am very familiar with the political arena. I worked in home health care for over 20 years as a home health care manager. Saw a lot of things, going to people's houses, seeing how people live in different areas of the country. I worked in Detroit. I worked in South Bend, Indiana. I worked out Ontario, California here. I worked in Encino. So I've seen a lot of different facets of society. We had grants in Detroit from the senior center. We went to people's homes to care for them because they didn't necessarily couldn't get to the senior center. The senior center came to them to help them. I have a son, an adult son. I have 2 grown grandchildren. Well, they're 19 and 23, if you really want to call that grown, because they're not grown yet, and nowadays. But I want to bring up then that they're millennials. They don't drive. Millennials don't want to drive. They want smaller residents. We don't seem to have that in Santa Clarita. It doesn't seem to be on the master plan. I know that Vista Canyon, their suggestion about affordable housing to Marcia was, well, we do have some smaller homes and larger ones if people can afford them. That was at least what they said. Now, I don't know if that's going to come to fruition in their development, but that's exactly what they said. So I know affordable housing is a big issue. The traffic is a big issue. Of course, we have talked about it. Public transportation. I'm a real advocate for public transportation. I've taught to people, drivers on the bus. I take the bus all the time. I taught to them today. And you know what he told me? Our public transportation system is 20 years ago. We need to update it. We need to have service more areas, and we also need to have longer hours because there is no nightlife, and I'm with Elaine. If I want to go to the Canyon Theater over where Red Robin used to be, well, the show started at 9 o'clock. I mean, the major act, right. So I won't be able to go. Thank you.
Now for your questions. Questions for Ms. Nichols?
Hello.
I'd like to ask you the same question about the possibility of rent control authority returning to the city and what your position will be.
Well, I will tell you that from what I've read on the ballot, the rent control that's proposed, there are a lot of flaws in that because I have talked to people that they're worried that down the line the government is going to take their house, and that looks to me like sort of a step in that direction. Because I'm not talking because they're going to lose it, because you're giving a lot of control. People don't want to lose control. That's the one thing. Even with these sharing of homes, some people have to do it, but they hate to give up their independence. And that's a big problem. And some people think rent control sounds great, but when you really look into it, it doesn't sound so great to me. Because I know of people that rent houses out. I don't want them to have a panel come in and evaluate if they can, how much they can charge to rent a room. So I'm not for that kind of rent control at all.
Keeping up with the rent control, living in a mobile home park, there is rent control, and it's probably the only rent control in Santa Clarita. And I disagree with all of you as far as rent control. I lived in a rent control apartment in Studio City, and the rent still went up. So they do have to keep it up. There are certain things that have to be done, but I do think there needs to be something and some sort of moratorium as far as rents. People are being rented out of existence, and you can't move. If you live in one area and you want to move to another area and you were in rent control, then they can move the prices up to whatever they feel is comparable or compatible to everything else. But I disagree with not having it. The question is, what would you do? What would you propose to try and help people keep rents under control?
Well, maybe we should get some more HUD-type housing in this area that goes by the person's income. I'm just putting this out there. I don't know if we could do it. I'm just putting that out there. Because where I live, it's a senior apartment. Low income, supposedly. But
how much is your rent?
Well, right now, this is supposedly the lowest in the area is $1,050 for one bedroom that are like cracker boxes. You know how small apartments are nowadays. So, and nobody, first of all, they don't think they got any room to have a roommate. They're so small. But I mean, they say 5 people, 3 people can live in a 1-bedroom, 5 people in a 2-bedroom. That's what the landlords say. And the thing is once somebody moves out, because they've been maxed out, because seniors are living longer. Hey, 70's nothing nowadays. We know that. Well, it says I was 69, and I was, but when I put the ballot in, but I had a birthday set, so now I'm 70. But at any rate, so, it's nothing nowadays. But the thing is, they're living longer, so therefore, they're maxed out with their just retirement or pension or whatever. They move, and somebody moves in just immediately. So the owners, they're big companies. They're not little mom and pops. I mean, they're mom and pop people that have maybe an apartment here and there. But I mean, these buildings, they're big conglomerates that own these things.
Next question, please.
This is a police scanner. I listen to it more than 12 hours a day, and I've got 26,000 people in this city that demand instantly to know why there's sirens, lights, and what's going on. On the low-income housing thing, more than 60% of these calls daily originate in low-income housing areas. I'm not going to specifically state which ones because there's more than a handful of them. But I understand the problem of low-income housing. I also understand the type of people that are coming in. So my question is, how are we going to get the people that are managing these to better vet the type of people they're bringing in?
Well, that's very interesting. When I lived there for 13 and a half years, and there was a lot of educated people. Like I said, I have a master's degree. Well, I have 2 master's degrees, but regardless, there was nurses and social workers that lived there. I don't know those people anymore. The people that are moving in they don't have education. And the thing is, they've raised, it used to be that you could only make $40,000 a year to live there, but now they've raised it to $50,000, and they're still not getting those kind of people. And I know exactly what you're saying. Well, part of it is because of the lower income, a lot of these people are on Medi-Cal. They call an ambulance, and then they don't go. There's issues all the time, and they don't, they decide that they'll go to the hospital, and then they come back immediately. I mean, see, I'm on Medicare. I have to pay for my Medicare, and I think twice before I call. I don't call because I feel a little dizzy that day or whatever. I'm saying there are emergencies, and then there are some that are not emergencies. And I think that when people are not footing the bill, they take advantage. They abuse it. And quite honestly, well, I think, are you the one about the democracy question? Somebody asked about that earlier. I mean, that's the thing, is that, when you give people things, and some people just say, oh, well, I'd just rather that they give it to me.
Time. Thank you.
Good evening. Douglas Frazier, and I'm asking the same question about the term limits and the districts to you, if you're in favor of them or if you want the city citizens to be polled and you would comply with what the citizens say versus just saying that the city council believes this way, so that's where they're going to keep going.
Well, if you elect this council, they're going to continue it. People have come up to me after this question has been asked about district, and they said you need to look at the what happened like in '74, I believe. The city was not for districts, and I understand what they're saying, that people will just be fighting for their areas. But Candy Country, we've been feeling like we're on the low end of the totem pole for a long time. So I think that we really need to look a little bit further into districts. We can't just blanketly say, yes, we want it, no, we don't, because we have to look at other cities and see that are our size, because our size, it keeps growing and growing and growing. I mean, I've only lived here since 2000, and I can't believe it, the way things have changed just in that short of time. As far as term limits, I honestly do think that there should be term limits, because people get sedentary in how they're doing things. I understand you build relationships, but everybody can build relationships. You have to be able to listen to your constituents, and some people think that they're not listened to.
I'm going to address the moderators for a minute. I just got off an airplane from Florida. I was down there for disasters. I didn't realize the forum was one candidate per questionnaire. So if you'll indulge me, I have a question basically for all of you, two questions. One is the 3 rule to get something on the agenda. As a citizen, as much as I like Ken Striplin, I have an issue with it takes the 3 of you to put something on the agenda where I elect you versus a person that's not elected can put something on the agenda they want. So I would ask you, I'll start with you since you have the floor. If you were elected, then I'd like to ask the rest of the candidates, especially the 3 since you're incumbents currently, would you actively take or vote to change that rule and go back to if anybody wants to put it on the agenda?
Well,
a single person could put something on the agenda.
I think a single person should be able to put something on the agenda, that a constituent comes to them and they have a valid question or problem. The problem is, and I can understand in a sense, is people come to you and you talk to them for a while and you realize that their problem is never going to be solved. If you know what I'm saying, there may be a little bit mental, or there's no problem. That problem cannot be solved by the city. So that's the problem, I think. But I think that one person should be able to put it on the agenda.
Alan, can we have the rest of the candidates?
Well, yeah, I think that it's a legitimate question, but let's hang loose. I'm going to give everybody a little extra time when they wrap up, and I'll remind them that you're looking for that answer in their wrap up.
All right.
Another question?
Stephen O'Neill. I'd like to return to the social infrastructure. Many cities are building community gardens along with their trails. And this kind of an atmosphere kind of helps with your crime problem, really. People are involved with one another, and it's a very social atmosphere. I'd like to know how you feel about the Parks Department opening up to more community gardens, especially here in rather densely populated canyon country.
Well, I think it sounds like a really good idea. And the thing is like, I think that since the younger generation is going to want to be using those bike trails, they want to feel safe, which I've got an idea that maybe we should have some bicycle patrol officers that other cities have that we don't have, especially on the bike trails, as I talked a while ago at another forum. When I took one, it was very isolated in Canyon Country, and it was pretty scary, to say the least, and it was during the day, and we know that some person was attacked. I think that the beauty in that's what a lot of the millennials want. They want, like I said, they want smaller areas. They want to be able to take public transportation, bike trails, go to different things, go to dinner. Nobody, really cooks out anymore, and they like to enjoy the beauty. And I think that that would be a wonderful idea to have that, the community gardens.
Have time for questions. Any questions?
Okay, well, thank you.
All right.
Okay, well, I just want to say, and I'll be really brief, that I hope that you vote for me, as I do have, some background in how local governments work from my education. I'm perusing the budget to see where we could and how we could possibly put in these patrol bikes on bicycles in the paths. And I was just wondering, well, you haven't said, but the BMX, where is that going to be over there? I know you came to one of those meetings. So we haven't talked about Whitaker-Burmack. What's going to be over there? I don't think housing should be there. I think that it should be some kind of entertainment type of thing that people are not there for, extended periods of time. I don't think that there should be hotels. I think there should be things like, an amusement park, or even, some kind of skateboard track or something. I don't think that people, they should be living there, because it has been mentioned before in the past that the state's going to say it's cleaned up, but anything that comes along in the future, the city's going to be responsible for. And we don't be responsible for anybody, some child being born and becoming disabled because of something was in the ground that we don't know about. So that's what I'm worried about right there. As far as one of the things is, we need, besides building roads, we need some additional things. One of the drivers told me today that down there in Golden Valley, coming up that hill from like Newhall Ranch Road, coming up to going to the freeway by the high school where Golden Valley is, not just on that street, it's jam-packed at 7 o'clock. People trying to get to the freeway. He said some child is going to get killed. And then maybe the city will do something about that. This is what he told me. So they're out driving all the time. They're seeing all kind of things. I think that there should be some speed limits. We never give any kind of I've never seen anybody really get a traffic ticket. The most I ever saw was when people were walking over there in Newhall. They were, people were turning on the crosswalks on their phones and stuff, and they gave out a whole bunch of tickets, like 64 tickets or whatever, for that type of thing. But I never see anybody getting that. And waiting on the bus, and people are just driving crazy down Sierra. I don't know if I have any more time, but those are a couple of my things. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have